welcome to a new edition of LinkedIn Live for Women Leaders. Today, we are talking about unleashing the power of effective boardroom communication for non-English speakers. My name is Helena de Munk. I am your host. I am a transformation guide for smart, conscious, and high-achieving women. And I'm thrilled to be here with Joanne Hayward. Welcome, Joanne. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Joanne is dialing in from Malta, and I am here from the south of Spain. And just before we started this live stream, we were talking about all the fruits that are coming our way from our trees. Nature is abundant, and it is so nice to have your own olives and your own almonds and peaches and things like that. And I would like to use this abundance as a concept and as a mindset also for our talk today, because we are going to talk about executive presence and communication in the boardroom for non-English speaking people, of course, in a very international context. And Joanne, why is this a thing?
I'm just really pleased that you brought up the whole fruit thing because watering plants actually is the one thing you need to really take care of your fruit in order for it to grow well and healthily. And the same thing is with your English. So if English is not your native language, looking after your language skills and growing your language skills so that in any situation, be it a boardroom, be it a presentation, you can communicate your expertise. And that's what it's all about. So yeah, I feel very strongly that looking after it, nurturing it a little bit, that's what it's all about, isn't
Yeah,
it?
absolutely. Now, in your work, because you are a business English coach, not a teacher, but a coach, which is a big difference. So you meet
Absolutely.
women, people in general, I guess mostly women also, that need some assistance and support in this area. So what is your experience? What do you see there in terms of confidence, in holding themselves back, imposter syndrome, things like that? What do you notice?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is mainly ladies that I teach. That is my target audience because I like helping women to overcome. I think we as women have a lot of imposter syndrome and we have extra issues sometimes. But a lot of the people I see, they're experts in their field, and a lot of them are in the finance industry, but that's broadening out now. So they are experts in their field and they are wanting promotion or wanting a new job in an international environment, but they haven't got the confidence to communicate. They're worried about making mistakes. They're worried that their English isn't good enough and that they will be judged negatively for not being able to communicate effectively in English. So they come to me and I work with them to give them the tools that they need to improve their own language skills, focusing on what they need to say rather than grammar.
Mhm.
um,
Okay. It is about
Exposed.
conversations,
It is because that's what,
meetings. Yeah.
yeah, that's what
Mm,
business English is all about. It's about
mhm,
communicating with other experts. So it might be colleagues, it might be managerial level, it might be customers. Communicating with the people that you need to communicate in English to make your opinions clear, to give your views, to ask questions, to make presentations. So it's not general, although small talk obviously is a big part of developing relationships and things like that. Most of my students are fine with the small talk. It's the
mhm,
confidence to take the next step and
mhm.
to show their expertise in
Yeah.
English.
So, do you believe it is only about the English? Is it only about the language, or are there other
No.
things involved? Yeah.
Oh, everything's involved. It's confidence is confidence. And if you're,
Mhm,
I know some very shy people that speak perfect English. They are native English speakers that wouldn't stand up and make a presentation because they don't
mhm,
feel confident in their own abilities to communicate on a bigger forum. So there's lots of elements. And when you're communicating with someone else, you use your hands, you use your face. I think there are lots of studies that say up to 80% of communication is actually non-verbal.
Absolutely.
But when you feel unsure about your language skills, then that reflects on other parts of your personality because you're feeling nervous, and then that destroys your confidence levels. And you start worrying about things that really there's nothing to worry about, because it
Mhm.
is all about getting your being understood and understanding. That's what I think
Yeah.
that's what I help with, is being
Mm.
understood and understanding.
Yeah. It's very interesting. I'm not a native English speaker, as everybody can hear. At least when you listen to me for an hour, you notice. The thing is that I believe that it is about the connection. It is about how you interact with people. And I cannot deny that I have not been nervous or a little bit preoccupied in the beginning, especially when I was doing lives and having master classes for an English speaking public, although most of them were not native English speakers either. That's even also a difference. But the moment I understood that it is about the connection, it is about what you bring and how you bring it, and then making some grammar or other mistakes is not really the essence of the whole interaction and of the quality of the relationship or the quality of the output of the meeting or whatever. Once I
Absolutely.
understood that, I felt a lot more comfortable.
And
Not that I
confident.
want to say that it and confident,
Yeah,
absolutely. I'm not saying that I would not want to improve, and I'm not learning, and I'm not making the effort to find out how to say specific things or looking up words, and I guess everybody does that. But it is about having the fluency to talk instead of keeping everything in your head. Me as a
absolutely.
reformed perfectionist, I tend not to say too much, just not to make the mistakes. Yeah. Does that resonate? Do you see that with your clients?
Absolutely. The thing is that we all feel nervous when we do new things. And but to do new things in another language is another state of nervousness. Whereas
Mhm.
we might feel nervous the first time we go live, or the first time as entrepreneurs, we do a lot of new things. And the first time you do anything new is can cause anxiety. And obviously doing things in another language as well will elevate that. What I tend to do, being a coach as opposed to a teacher,
Mhm.
is I help people to prepare what they're going to be able to say, and really get ready to receive questions. What kind of questions can I expect? Because we know the answers to these questions. What
Mhm.
questions can I expect to be asked? And then prepare those answers along with your presentation. And then, if you go into any business scenario as prepared as you can, whether it's in English or any other language, you're halfway there. That will help
Absolutely.
enormously with the confidence. And then
Mhm.
confidence brings competence, and then it's an upward spiral from there. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You can even build your confidence by visualization. Just imagining yourself standing there on stage, of being in the meeting room, of or having that important conversation, and just practicing in your mind, in your imagination, and including
Yeah.
all your senses. You hear yourself saying it, you see yourself sitting or standing there, you see the interactions with other people involved, things like that,
Yeah.
because your mind doesn't really make a difference between the reality and the imagination. It was already
No.
prepared.
I do think that when you're speaking English, to actually speak out loud, particularly
Yes.
when you're working on your pronunciation, when you're
Hmm.
practicing, to speak out loud helps your mouth to prepare for the sounds that you're going to be making that might not be the same sounds as your native language. So I always recommend to practice out loud, do it in front of the mirror, do it in front of the dog, do it in front of the children. The more times you say it, because also, I don't want people to be reading out scripts, because that doesn't work either. When you're in a boardroom situation, or a senior position, in whether you're doing presentations, you need to connect with your audience, and that
Absolutely.
comes with eye contact, and not when you're looking down at a piece of paper and reading. So you need to know your script, kind of script. You need to know what you're going to be saying, and then to practice saying it so you feel comfortable. The first time you say anything new as a non-native speaker, you can feel a little awkward about it. Even myself, I'm trying to learn Maltese, and there are certain sounds that I still can't get. And my children are teaching me, and I still can't hear the difference between the way I say it and the way they say it. And I know
Mhm.
some of my students have the same issues until you see the mouth working and you practice that way. But
Yes.
yeah, speaking out loud is something that makes you almost trains your brain that you're an English speaker. There's another thing that a lot of my students used to do is to apologize for their English. And that is something I can't stress. You should never be done because then people
Mhm.
are focusing on the negative elements instead of what you've got to say.
Yeah.
So don't ever apologize for your English. If anyone brings it up, you can always say that you're learning, but people won't bring it up because as long as you're making sense and they can understand and you can
Mm.
understand them, what's to
Yeah.
criticize?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. How do you experience, because I guess that you work also for corporates, how do you experience the version of corporates, of organizations as such, in order to the English, the knowledge of English, the level of English that they need?
Obviously, they sometimes have a different agenda than the individual. The individual often would just wants to fit in and do their job well when it comes to corporates, whereas the obviously the HR manager wants usually a little bit more. So it's about balancing up because the way I like to coach is to make sure that people enjoy the journey because
Yeah.
an hour or 2 hours a week is not sufficient to get much better. So you need to put in some time every day, and to do that, you need to be learning relevant things, but you need to be learning the things that are going to be useful for you at work so that you
Mhm.
can see the growth, you can see yourself improving, your life gets easier, it gets more fun to communicate, and you start searching for more opportunities. And if you can start to do that, then your abilities just grow and grow, which is just
Yeah.
brilliant.
Do you see with your clients that they move fast in terms of promotions, getting new projects once they really feel this confidence in speaking English, and they have this
Absolutely.
possibility to express themselves the way they want to? Yeah, you can see that.
Absolutely. Because the doors start opening, because a lot of them, in fact, this happened to me quite recently with a young guy. They're all young. And his English was amazing. And I actually had a meeting with his manager and he said his English is not really improving. This was after about 2 months. And I'm like, okay, this is really strange because the person I've been speaking to has improved a lot. And I spoke to him and he said I'm too shy to open my mouth to, although he was outside of work, he was speaking to everybody. He had a new
Yeah.
job in a cafe, like a part-time job, so that he could improve his English. He was looking for English speakers. He'd even been on holiday to the UK, but it wasn't reflecting at work. And I thought that was very interesting. I gave him a little bit of encouraging and a little bit of a push. And yeah, now he's putting himself forward for all the opportunities that he can find that involve speaking English. He's passed his, we worked together to do a technical examination. He got 86%, which
Oh,
is
mhm.
just phenomenal. And his company then recognized that his abilities were much higher and I think once his company recognized it, then that helped him to again push himself a little bit because you always have to push yourself out of your comfort zone.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
sometimes it's more
Absolutely.
difficult to do it at work than it is to do it outside. But I think that I think a little bit of a push is always good for all of us.
Yeah.
So a
Yeah.
push or a pull is one or the other.
How do they say that? If this is your comfort zone, then there's where the magic happens or where the growth happens.
Absolutely.
You cannot grow if you stay into
Absolutely.
your comfort zone. I'm just checking
Absolutely.
because I see we have somebody else joining us here. Hi, Julia. Julia Denisenko. I hope pronounced your name right. And
Hi,
probably
Yulia. How are you?
you are not a native English speaker, so very welcome. If you have any questions or feedback or experiences that you want to share and that we can build on during our conversation here, just let us know. And also for you,
Hello. I'm not sure
that
if
will be
it's.
made
Oh, sorry.
available.
I
Yeah, something happened here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You froze. I didn't wasn't sure if it was you freezing or me freezing.
yeah, something
It's
froze. Absolutely.
technical.
But we're back. back. Technology is not under control. We just have to
No.
go with that flow. It's like with language. We don't have it under control because suddenly we need to use a word that we cannot, that doesn't come to our mind, and it's
And
life. And it is
we
about being flexible and bounce back, isn't it?
totally. And we're all learning. I learn more every day. I constantly look for talks about language learning and for techniques that help my students to learn more easily and more in a more fun way. I think that I have to be honest, I think that language learning is a lot about repetition, but it's about repeating things in a way that is fun and helps the brain to retain the information. But that's the
Mhm.
same with all of us. We're all learning new skills. We're all growing our knowledge in all types of life. And yeah, so I think it's a really exciting time to be here, especially
Mhm.
working online and being able to communicate like this. We never would have met in everyday life because you're in
Exactly.
Spain, I'm in Malta, I'm on a
Ex-
very small island. So I don't think you would have come this way.
I don't know. I think Malta is very nice also to explore, but it is not only professionally or maybe semi professionally, but I know that since I moved to Spain 3 days before the confinamiento, so before the big lockdown, and I promised myself or I committed to myself that I would talk to two people per day that I did not,
Mm,
per week that I did not know. And
yeah,
two people per week that I did know because I'm on the top of a mountain in the middle of nowhere, and this is a very good place to be, but if on top of that there's like a limitation that you cannot go anywhere, it's a
yeah,
different thing.
yeah.
And having the language then is amazing because you can connect with people from all over the world. You can get information from all over the world. You can travel all over the world. Language
Absolutely.
is so important. We're talking about English, but I'm also talking about Spanish. Of course, if you move abroad, then it's
Absolutely.
a good idea to learn the language at least so you can communicate
So
the
are you
basic
learning
things.
Spanish? Do
Yes,
do you
I'm
speak
learning
Spanish?
Spanish. I do speak Spanish, especially the basic Spanish, and I know a lot of words that have to do with water, air conditioning, central heating, because those are
Yes.
all my problems in the house.
Well, that
So
I have
you
to
need to
say
be
that
able to explain what's wrong, what
That
doesn't work.
absolutely that absolutely highlights the way that I teach because it's all about learning the words and phrases that you need in your business life. So
Yeah,
you don't need to learn English to do business because you already know those words. But what you need to learn in Spanish is air conditioning and what needs to be fixed. And in
exactly.
English, a lot of it is to do with you need to learn the words and phrases that you have to communicate to other people, and also, you can prepare lots of things in advance. If you were going to phone for an air conditioning repairman, you would probably prepare what you were going
Yes,
to say and maybe what questions you would hear back from the
exactly.
repairman.
Yeah,
And you do the same with the language skills. And not only what are you going to say, but also cultural competence, depending on where the people that you're speaking to come from. Because if
yeah,
you're speaking to people in Saudi Arabia, they might have a very different view on how you communicate. I used to work in Dubai and we you have to have tea first. You don't start talking business, you just sit, have tea, talk about the family. That's considered
yeah.
the only way to start off a business conversation.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
information like that is really useful to prep up on. So it's not just the actual English, it's the whole thing. When you're doing business internationally, these are really important elements that will help to expand your reputation. Yeah,
exactly. And the quality of your interaction. Yeah.
absolutely.
Julia is contributing here that she recognizes what you told, the story you told of the client you had that was very eloquent outside of work and then had reluctance to speak at work professionally. She
Yeah.
recognizes that. I think this confidence building is very important. Yeah.
Absolutely. And at work, you're more worried. People are more worried about making a mistake and being judged negatively.
Mhm.
So if you
Yeah.
go and walk down to the shop and you want to buy a coffee or anything like that, then if people judge you, they're not going to judge you. It's not going to impact your career. But
Mhm.
if you think that people are going to judge you based on your English, then it makes you even more reluctant to speak out. And I would say if I was going to give one piece of advice, I would say that you're focusing on yourself, and what you should really focus on is just communicating your expertise. And if you focus on
Mhm.
that and don't worry about you, then your expertise will get out there.
I like that. I like that a lot. And it doesn't even go only for speaking a foreign language. It is about
Absolutely.
if you focus on your audience, on the people that you are interacting with, and you're
Yeah.
there to serve or to solve a problem or to create something together. If you focus
Mhm.
on that,
Yeah.
instead of being very self-aware about mistakes that you might make, things like that,
Yeah.
then you feel a lot more confident and comfortable because you are there to serve, you are there to interact, you're not there
Absolutely.
to, yeah, absolutely,
And
yeah,
a
yeah,
lot of people come to me and they say, oh, I want to improve my vocabulary. And there are a lot of international situations where using jargon and idioms and phrasal verbs and all of these wonderful things is just not appropriate. Because if you
mhm,
have a truly international audience, if you didn't understand the idioms, likely as not, they probably won't either. So
yeah,
it's all about the message and who your audience is in any
mm,
situation.
yeah,
So if you are with a bunch of people from all different parts of the world, which a lot of these situations are, you have to think about the people that you're talking to. And if it's full of native speakers, even then, some people from England will have certain phrases that Americans don't know, and vice versa. And so it is all about what do you want them to hear and understand from
mm,
you,
yeah,
and work around that.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very interesting that you bring that up. A couple of years ago, I had this amazing conversation with Gabrielle Dolan. She's Australian. She wrote a couple of books and she's into interaction and communication. And she was talking about this jargon. And basically, it is used, it's a long time ago, but I still remember the conversation. But basically, it is used to exclude people. And you're new in an organization and people start like, yes, we have to talk about this AKD. And people are like, okay, am I stupid because I have no clue what they're talking about? And so
Mm,
I would like to put a stake in the ground for organizations and for team leaders in order to, especially if you're working with a very international team, in order to mind your language.
mm.
Talk English. Don't talk in abbreviations or things that are not understandable for people that are not in the inner circle, because by creating the inner circles, you are also excluding a lot of other people. And if you want to achieve something with your team, this is not the way to build commitment and to build trust and to build engagement. And it's a very interesting one. You say you teach your clients to avoid using these things. And I also would say if these things are used in your meetings or in your interactions, just
Mhm.
don't assume that you are stupid because you don't
Absolutely,
know.
absolutely.
It is basically being able to ask or to inform them that
Yes.
this is
I
not a
mean,
good communication skill.
absolutely. There are lots of these shortened versions of words and phrases that are thrown around a lot. Within certain industries, there are an inherent part of the communication because to say the full word or phrase each time would actually take quite a long time. But making sure that everyone understands everything. I had a student who sent me some emails. She said, I get pages and pages of emails and I have a problem sifting through to pick out the most important information. So that was one of the issues that she wanted me to help her with. And I started reading these emails and I was absolutely staggered at the number of letters, random letters that were in this pages and pages of emails. And I said to her, it's very difficult to sift through until we go through and see what those acronyms stand for. And
Yeah,
but when you're starting a new job, it's very difficult for people to go and say to the management, you need to stop using these. It is
yeah,
a question of you need to fit in and learn them. But we need to define them first before you can learn them.
yeah,
And but I do think that international management managers and CEOs should be aware of the exclusion that brings, so people can't
yeah.
understand the 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 obvious things of what you're talking about. Yeah,
Yeah,
it is.
absolutely. It is very
Absolutely.
important to speak a language that everybody can follow and that everybody can engage with, that
Yeah.
everybody that is at a certain level in the
Absolutely.
meeting or in the setting. That's
I
absolutely
mean,
true.
they say 60% of all companies, of all international companies, use English as a base language. But
Mhm.
it doesn't mean that all of the people that work for those companies have English as a native language. A
Okay.
lot of them will come from all different parts of the world. So it is about, as a CEO and as an entrepreneur, is communicating in a way, right back to the basics.
Mhm.
Communicate in a way that you are understood and
Yeah.
in a way that will allow you to understand. If you
Mhm.
need to focus on a certain accent, a lot of people find some accents very easy to understand and others more difficult depending on where they're from.
Yeah.
And that's another
Let's talk
element
about
that needs to,
that.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
really
let's talk
interesting
about that,
actually.
Joanne, because
Yeah.
it's very interesting, especially for me, for example, if I talk with people from Asia, China, India, sometimes it's very hard to understand them. I really
Yeah,
need a lot of energy on just trying to understand what they say. So,
totally.
what tips do you have for people in order to make sure that they are understandable, that they have an accent that is at least digestible? Yeah.
If you're talking about them speaking or you're talking about the listening skills, what I recommend is really making a note of the areas that you find difficult. Okay. I had a student and she'd spent a lot of time traveling around Africa. So she found the African accents incredibly easy to understand. But she had some customers in China and she found it very difficult to understand that particular accent. What I recommend is that you make a note of the accents you find tricky. Focus on the most important one because you can't do everything at once. So, the most important one, and then find other sources for that accent. So, for example, if you find the accent from China more difficult, or the accent from India, the accent from Australia, find other sources of that accent and expose yourself to it.
Okay.
TEDx is excellent. So TED Talks are very professional. TEDx, they do much smaller, more lower level, but with a much bigger variety of accents. So, for example, I found one, a TEDx that took place in Zimbabwe. So all of the speeches were with of people with an accent that you can then listen
Mm.
to, choose your favorite subject, listen, and then you just expose yourself to that. The more you expose
That's a
yourself to
very
that
good idea.
accent, the easier it is to understand. That's it. Pure
Okay.
repetition. Yeah.
Yeah.
I see the time's gone. Listen, we could talk forever. We should do this again.
We still have some time. We're like on 30
Okay.
minutes, aren't we? Yeah,
Perfect.
we still
Perfect.
have some time.
Wonderful.
Absolutely. So, so what about when you know or when you are aware that you speak with an accent? Then what?
Mm, mm. What I recommend is if you know that you speak with an accent, first of all, I would I embrace accents. I think accents are part of who we are. They're part of your culture. They're part of the people that we actually are. And so I would never recommend to someone that they eliminate their accent. If they find that people find it difficult to understand them, then there's an exercise that I recommend regularly that's very good, which is shadowing. And that is finding an accent that you like. It might be an English accent, might be an American accent, but certainly don't mix and match. This is an exercise to be done. Find a person that you like the sound of or one particular accent. Like I have an English RP accent. A lot of people like that. Some people like the American accent, whatever. Choose that one particular accent and then shadow exactly as they're saying with the right intonation. So it's not really about the words they're using, it's the way they
Mhm.
say the words. And
Okay.
this is an exercise where you're not focusing on new vocabulary or any other elements of the English language. It's purely exactly what they're saying and how they're saying it. And I recommend that not to do it sentence by sentence, because by the end of the sentence, you've forgotten the beginning of the sentence, how your voice goes up and down. So I recommend doing it phrase by phrase. And if you do that, you will start to think in English in that tone, in that way of
Mm.
speaking, in that accent. That's one good way of changing your accent a little bit when you speak English. But most people just need to tweak a few sounds. And
Hmm.
that makes all the difference in the world. That I had one student, and he was very difficult to understand when I first started, and then I had him to read some text, and I realized he wasn't finishing any of his words, and each
Okay.
word he was clipping the end of each word. And when I said to him, "Okay, we need to finish each word as," because even though we blend words together, we're still making the sounds. And he was missing the sounds, which made it very difficult to understand. And so we
Yeah.
did this a couple of times, and he changed, I think, within half an hour, from being
Whoa.
understandable to, okay, you can understand everything he says. Just a small tweak
Yeah.
can make huge difference. But finishing
Wonderful.
words is something that a lot of nationalities or for different languages miss. So you've got the ed, the t, the s of a plural. They miss those final sounds, and that will make all the difference.
All right. And
Mm.
what about articulation and pronunciation? Because sometimes it's like people are talking with their mouths. Yeah. So what are tips there? I think it's also something that's like regional. For some people, it is coming back in certain countries.
Listen, even in the UK, there are places in the UK where I have no idea what they're talking about. They have certain areas of the UK where it not only is the accent strong, but they're using different words, completely different words.
Mm.
And so even if you could understand what the words they were saying, they would still make no sense because they're actually speaking a completely different language. For example, I have a friend in Scotland, and she often talks about giving it laldy. I said, "What
Okay.
is this laldy stuff you're talking about?" And it means you're giving it your all, like you're having fun. When you go out in the evening, you might give it laldy, so you dance a lot, you have fun. But you need to translation of that word before you
Yeah.
understand the
Mm.
whole phrase.
Yeah.
So it is just, again, about being understood. And if you have an accent that's very difficult to understand, it's about becoming aware that that other people are finding it tricky to understand you. And
Mm.
it's down to you then to try and do some shadowing exercises, move your mouth in a way to speak the language. Everybody's mouths, when you speak different languages, the mouths move in different ways. And it's about m- when you learn the language, it's not just about the words, it's about the way you say the words. And that's why speaking out loud is so important when you're practicing. You need to say things out loud to make your mouth move.
The right way. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's not only your mouth, it's also your tongue. It's where you put your
yeah,
tongue to your teeth. Or there's so many things like the French speak with this R, and we have it in Belgium also. It is very interesting to see how basically we are predestined in order to even adapt and adopt other languages to our original determination. It's funny to see that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
very interesting when you see someone that's completely fluent in two languages, when they switch between the two, the whole sound that comes out of their mouths is completely different.
Yeah.
And that's fascinating because I live in Malta where we have two languages. There's English and there's Maltese. They're both official languages.
Mm.
And when you see people moving from Maltese to English, because a lot of them are completely fluent in those two and Italian as well, um,
Okay.
it's amazing to see the whole face changes and the way that the intonation goes up and down changes completely. They use their hands more when they speak Italian. It really is quite fascinating when you look at what is language. It's just the way your
Mm.
mouth moves. If you look at sort of other animals, how they communicate, it's amazing, really, that language
Yeah.
has developed the way it is. And AI is going to change so much for language. We've all probably seen these videos about these little machines where you speak in your own language and out comes the
Mhm.
target language.
Yeah.
Will that stop people from learning languages?
I
No,
hope
I don't
not.
think it will. I don't think
No.
it will
Yeah.
because it there's still the barrier. So when we
Yeah.
can both speak the same language, there's a far lower barrier than if you're talking to a machine. and
Exactly. It's about the
learn something.
connection, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yulia is saying that she wants to thank you very much because the information is motivating not to give up. Absolutely. There's absolutely no reason to give up anything. It is
absolutely.
about I'm so surprised even Joanne by the things that you bring here that are that I'm not saying they're easy, but they're simple. We can all do that. And it's not like we will be able to do this overnight,
Yeah,
but these are all things that we can work with if we want to have a more
absolutely.
international career, if we want to travel, if we want to use it. Because I know so many people who are really feeling uncomfortable in a foreign language and
Absolutely.
deny themselves and
Yeah,
others
yeah.
pleasure of a conversation.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
and not only the pleasure of conversation, but they're denying themselves the opportunities to achieve their dreams, achieve their goals
exactly.
by not
Mm,
going for things that they might go for otherwise. It's sad because a lot of students that I speak to, their English level is good. They've got great grammar knowledge and their vocabulary is very good. And it's just that opening of the mouth that stops them
yeah.
from
Hmm.
really achieving that next level success. And I think that's why having a coach to help to train you to the next level in whatever you're doing in life, I think having a coach is so important. If you're
Hmm.
looking for your next dream, or you want to learn English, or you want to learn the piano, or you have to have someone who is better than you and that can help to guide
Absolutely.
you and
Yeah.
save time.
Yeah. And also who sees your blind spots. Because sometimes we're absolutely not aware about what is keeping us from moving forward. And having somebody who is in a professional and kind way discovering with you your blind spots and
Yeah,
then also
and
supporting you
encouraging you. Yeah,
and
encouraging you to
encouraging you and
overcome them.
sponsoring you to grow and to explore and to practice.
Yeah,
Absolutely. That is what coaching
yeah,
is all about. And that's why I'm so happy that also you call yourself a coach rather than a teacher, because it is not about the theory, because then basically people could read a book or they could Google it. And now
yeah,
you have all these translations possibilities on internet with the sound, with the audio, so you can even there practice the pronunciation of a certain word. But if you can work with somebody and you have the interaction and you feel
yeah,
encouraged and sponsored in your growth process, that
yeah.
makes the learning accelerating
A lot of
immediately. Yeah.
people, they go onto YouTube and but this is a great phrase, but you don't know what you don't know. And
Mm.
that's where a coach
Yeah.
can really step in, because you don't know what you don't know. I don't know what I don't know. I will learn what I don't know, and then I'll think, "Oh, I didn't know that." But and you need someone who's further up the ladder to help you, to teach you,
Exactly.
or to guide you to teach you what you don't know.
Yeah.
And then you can
Absolutely.
improve yourself, and that's where the joy happens. When you have a new client coming to see you, it's a joyful process, that first discovery call and things like that.
Mm.
It's so exciting when you see someone that's ready to take the next level, and it's great.
Exactly.
Love
Yeah.
it.
It's a learning process for both. For you, maybe it's a little bit different because you master the language so well. But in general, in coaching, I love it because it's a learning process for both of
Absolutely.
us.
For
Yeah.
me, everything is a learning process because every student I have is in a different situation. Although it's all the same presentations, negotiations, but my role is to help guide that person, and that person has their specific challenges. And although they're all very similar, but they all need a little bit of gentle guidance in slightly different ways.
Mhm.
And that's what's
Yeah.
exciting, is the fact that it's not put them in a box, and it's all about working together. And that's why
Yeah.
coaching it really wakes you up in the morning with a big smile. And I think we're both smiling all the time. So we're both kind of,
Most of
you
the
know,
time, yes.
apart from tech, that's the one
Yeah,
thing.
even with tech interruptions, I keep smiling because there's nothing you can do. And I guess this is something that is also so common since we are used to do so many things online, is that things can go wrong if they go wrong. Things that, working from home, then a dog is barking or something is happening in the background, and that's
Yeah,
okay.
and power
It's
cuts happen, and at the end of the
exactly.
day, things happen. And but even when you're talking about English business situations where you're doing presentations or negotiations, things may well go wrong. Things go wrong a
Oh,
lot.
absolutely.
And it's about reviewing, how can I make sure that doesn't happen again, and moving on, and not
Yeah,
focusing
learning
on,
from it.
yeah, and not
Exactly. Not
focusing on the me,
ruminating. Yeah,
focusing on the
exactly.
message and
Exactly.
finding another way. There's always a way.
Yeah,
I think there's always a way.
absolutely. Also, I think in conversations professionally, if the the conversation has the level that the problems are solved or the information is transferred or the connection is made, that judgment is far away. If you're in an organization with a lot of judgment, then maybe there's
Maybe
another thing
change
that you do.
organizations. Yeah. It's totally right. And if you don't feel that you're in a position to grow and you're not appreciated, then yeah, maybe it is time to look for another company. But you're absolutely right. The idea is behind moving forward is finding solutions to problems. That's what business is all about, finding solutions to
Exactly.
problems. And
Hmm.
the barrier to that should never be language. It should always
Hmm.
be, let's find those solutions. Let's exchange ideas. Let's come up with plans of action and let's execute them and let's do it.
Yeah,
Language should never be a
absolutely.
barrier. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So for people who want to start and do themselves, what would be like a good tip for them in order to make that first step towards improving their English and feeling more comfortable about it, especially that?
What I would recommend is that you take a situation where you're not comfortable in English. It might be attending a weekly marketing meeting. It might be making a presentation to your small team. It might be attending international events, whatever it might be. Take one situation and really focus down on that situation. Think it through. What vocabulary might be useful? What questions might I be asked? And do your own preparation for the presentation or for the meeting. With regards to, for example, you're going into a meeting as an attendee, a lot of people feel reluctant to open their mouths and say anything. So, for you, I would challenge you to open your mouth and say one thing on the next meeting.
Mm,
Prepare that thing, prepare for any questions that might bring, and just go and do that one thing. Come away, review it, say, what did it go well? Yes, it went well. No, it didn't go so well. I could have practiced a little bit more. And then have the next challenge to make two comments or respond
mm.
to two. So it's about pushing yourself for constant growth and just preparing and practicing and then performing. Everyone can do this. This is not something that you need particular help with because everyone you know what you want to say. Even if you use Google Translate or ChatGPT to translate it, you can always
Absolutely.
find there's always groups and people can always come to me and say, "Does this make sense?" And I can absolutely give some feedback. But
Mm.
most people know what they want to say to start with. So it's just about opening your mouth and saying it. That's
Beautiful.
that's
I love
that's the
that.
advice. Yeah. That's the advice.
Mm,
Just do it, and then you'll feel so much better for having done it.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah. And then with
exactly.
confidence
Beautiful.
brings competence. Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
it's little steps build confidence, little step build confidence, and basically this is how it grows. And even if
Compounding works
something
for
doesn't,
everything.
yeah, even if something doesn't work, that's a stepping stone. There again, this is not a failure. That is the worst thing that could happen to you. It's just something that you learn from. Okay, maybe better next time I need better prep to prepare better, or I need
Absolutely.
to bring it in a different way, or I need to wait for a different moment. Things like that. Just evaluate what went not the way that you wanted it and see how you can do better next time. Let it be a stepping stone for
Also,
growth.
evaluate and see how well you did do. What did you
Yeah.
do? Because I
Mm,
do find that sometimes when you review, you look at all the bad things that happen. I know the first few times I posted, no, I didn't get any comments, but I got a couple of likes, and I was like, nobody commented. But it's no, but I had people were liking my post. So you always have to look at the positive and say, okay, I did it. Okay, it
yeah,
didn't go as well as I wanted it to go, but what did work? And then I'll
exactly.
do more of that next time. Okay, so what didn't work so well? How can I improve that? But make sure you make a note of it because when you get to the next meeting, you'll have forgotten. So make a note of it. Okay, this went well. This I should do differently. And then next time
Mm,
you do it, you can review those notes and then upwards and onwards. It's life is all about it's opportunity and it's all exciting. And to look at everything you do as an experience and
Absolutely.
how to grow and just how to have more fun doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what
And
life's
to a
about.
certain level, I would say it is also an experiment. It's not only an experience, it's also
Always,
an experiment. Although in
always.
a professional context, a lot of people will feel very reluctant to see things as an experiment. But they
Yeah,
are. There
yeah,
are so many experiments, even if we do not want to call them like that, they are. And
yeah,
basically, whatever, there's so much, we are taking ourselves so seriously. We are taking things so seriously, even if we make a mistake, if we pronounce a word by mistake, the world will still keep turning. The sun will still shine tomorrow. Nobody will die. It's just about
yeah.
how to see these things and how to easily and swiftly recover, and
Yes,
we call that fail forward. Okay, this doesn't work. Okay, let's do something else,
yeah,
because our intentions are to contribute to a meeting, our intentions are to contribute to a team, and that's the most important thing. And our intentions are also to grow, to take more responsibility, and you cannot do that without experimenting and
absolutely.
experiencing the experiment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we have a spotlight. They call it a spotlight effect where we all think about ourselves and we've made a mistake with a pronunciation or we've said something wrong or but at the end of the day it's not about us, it's about the bigger picture. As you said, it's about communicating so that to get the job done. And I find that if an English learner thinks about that spotlight and just turning it off and saying, because nobody really cares if you mispronounce something as long as they
Exactly. Or
know what you're
sometimes they
talking
didn't
about.
even hear.
Yeah, they want to hear your expertise. That's why you're in the meeting. So
Yeah.
they don't care if you mispronounce the or any other sound. So
Mhm.
take that, turn that spotlight off and maybe switch it to a positive spotlight and say, okay,
Yeah.
when I'm doing my presentations, I want that spotlight on me. And you can
Mm.
prepare those really well. But day to day life, just people don't care. And
Yeah.
I think that if you can get into that situation, then I think that you will grow much faster because you'll try
Yeah.
more, experiment
Mhm.
more, have more fun.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And of course, if we're talking about high level leadership where there's in terms of authority and credibility, I absolutely understand
Yeah.
that people say we want to master the language. It is
Mhm.
important for our reputation, it is the relationships we have with stakeholders. That's absolutely true. And there's a way to get there. It's not, we make it a little bit fun and we make it a little bit light, but we know why we are doing this. There's so
Absolutely.
many steps you can make. And of course, if you are in a certain level in an organization or working at a certain level, you will probably go a lot deeper or take a lot more courses, because in terms of authority, it is important. But you
Yeah.
have to get there first, and you will not get at that scope and see that horizon if you take it too seriously from the start. So just go and
And
experiment.
fluency doesn't come. It's not something that you can just turn on. That and a lot of my students come to me with this, I want to be fluent. It's okay, that's the aim, but what's the first step? Because you
Exactly.
cannot learn everything at once because you will get overwhelmed. You won't achieve what you want to achieve because
Mhm,
you want to be fluent in a week and that's not going to happen because you
mhm.
have other things to do. You're a professional
Exactly.
with a job to do. You can't
Mhm,
dedicate and maybe with a family and you have other things, you have a life to lead. You don't want to
yeah,
be studying English every waking hour, you have other things to do. So
exactly.
let's take it step by step and improve. That should be the focus, is 1%
Mhm.
better every day. don't
Yeah,
don't knock
beautiful.
yourself out for not being from here to perfect. It's
Mm,
give yourself some credit and just do the best you can, keep growing, keep
yeah,
practicing, keep having fun, you know.
absolutely. And don't be afraid of failure. I don't really like that word either. It's more experimenting. Thank you, Julia. It is a moment for growth.
Yeah,
Absolutely. This is how we
yeah.
can look at it and use it in a good sense.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
failure. It's not failure. It's just you're not as you're not achieving the success that you're looking for that particular moment. But this
Yes.
is, and also failure. It's like fear. It's you just
Mm,
switch it around and just say, okay,
exactly. Yeah.
How can I do better next time? And that's it.
Yeah.
But if we stop taking ourselves so seriously in the process, then I think that although, of course, no one wants to make mistakes, especially in that kind of heavy business situation. Sometimes being able to have a little laugh about it, oh, I mispronounced something, you can
Mhm.
laugh it off and move on because it's your
Exactly. Mhm.
expertise. That's why you're in the job. It's not the
Yep.
fact that you speak perfect English, because if they wanted someone to speak perfect English, they would have employed someone to speak perfect English. They employed you
Exactly.
for your
Mhm.
role, for your
And
expertise
your
and
expertise
your
and
knowledge.
your
Yeah.
leadership and your knowledge,
Yeah.
absolutely. Joanne, how can people reach you?
Connect with me on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the platform that you find me every day,
Mhm.
and I also do a couple of discussion events twice a week. I do a ladies only on a Thursday at 5 p.m. Central European. This is every week. Ladies come together, professional non-native speakers, and it's not recorded, it's not streamed. It's just ladies practicing their English. We have a
Oh,
conversation about,
wonderful.
yeah,
Yeah.
it
That's
is. It's
very
a really,
nice.
and it's a lovely community feeling as well. And we also do one on a Saturday, and that's open for everyone Saturday morning.
Mm,
So
wonderful.
and
We'll
please
make
feel
sure
free.
that this
Yeah,
information
yeah,
is in the comments for everybody
wonderful.
to join. Also, everybody that's watching the replay. So connect with us if that is
Yes,
not yet the case on LinkedIn or on Facebook or Instagram, depending where you are watching us from. Very welcome to have conversations about improving English, about executive presence,
absolutely.
about
Yeah,
growing confidence. I guess that you have seen that we know what we're talking about. Not me for the English teaching, leadership, yes. For the English teaching, Joanne is a place to be and a person to connect with. And
I
thank you
think we
so
make a
much,
good
Joanne,
team.
for
We make a good team,
all
don't
the
we?
information you gave and the tip. There's some things that I really like because I'm struggling with them also, and that is understanding certain accents. So
Mm,
thank you for the tips there in terms of immerse yourself in these accents and
yeah.
learn to familiarize with them. Absolutely.
It is just practice, and it's not difficult. It's just time. But it's knowing the right things to look for, and yeah, I think that we also have accountants here. Yes, Julia is one of the people she comes to the Thursday and the Saturday session sometimes. But
Oh,
yeah,
beautiful.
we seem to have like several accountants that come and join us. So on a Thursday, which is quite funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
Wonderful. So, Joanne, thank you so much for your
Thank you so
generosity,
much for
for
having
your
me.
tips.
It's been really
That was
lovely. Yeah.
a great conversation with a lot of gold, a lot of nuggets for everybody that wants to build their executive presence in the boardroom and everywhere in a professional setting and context. I'm sure that there's a lot of things to start with, to take on, to consider in order to grow and to build that confidence in speaking a foreign language, which we will need to do more and more if we look at the world as it is right now.
Absolutely.
So thank
It's
you so much.
evolving. Yeah. Thank
Absolutely.
yeah.
And for you listening in and watching the replay, thanks for staying with us. Thanks for keeping the energy going also through the chat. If you are watching the replay, you can still, especially on LinkedIn, you can still send us your questions on your feedback on the comment page here below. We will monitor it. And if you have questions or whatever you need, we will take care of that with pleasure. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
And we see you next week for another LinkedIn Live for Women Leaders. Take care. Bye bye.